a breakthrough moment for the political standoff in Kashmir. A very crucial meeting took place today which merits some analysis and understanding on whether it could be a turning point in what has happened in Jammu and Kashmir since the August of 2019 when Article 370 was abrogated and Jammu and Kashmir were turned into union territories. Well, today the Prime Minister met with a 14-member party delegation called the People's Alliance for Gupkar delegation. This includes the major political parties of Kashmir and 3 former chief ministers, several leaders of Kashmir who were under house arrest after August 2019. This was the first time they've all met and spoken about the future of Jammu and Kashmir. So in all senses, a very significant meeting, an icebreaker of sorts, if you may. Now, what was on the agenda? The biggest point that all the leaders seem to have raised and what they've said after that meeting ended was the demand for the restoration of full statehood for Jammu and Kashmir. The holding of elections, which as per these leaders, the Prime Minister has said will happen after the delimitation process is completed. The question of Article 370 did arise, but the members agree that since it's sub judice, the matter is in Supreme Court, so they will wait and watch on what will happen. So how significant is this meeting? To speak on this, I'm joined now by Professor Abhishek Matoo, who is going to explain to us why this is an important day. Professor Matoo, thank you so much for speaking with us on the India Development Debate. Let me first start with the very basic question. Are you expecting much out of this meeting, or are you seeing this as a starting point that at least dialogue is taking place?
I think it's an extremely important first step for the following reasons. First of all, that after nearly 2 years of a complete trust deficit between New Delhi and Srinagar particularly, there is a dialogue happening. Then the Prime Minister, from all the accounts that one has heard, gave a virtual carte blanche to all the leaders to say what they want to say without any limitations of an agenda or time. Now, clearly, this is a beginning. This has to be followed up. But what is the second point which is encouraging is that there are signals that a new consensus could emerge through a dialogue of the stakeholders with the central leadership, particularly the Prime Minister's leadership. And the new consensus could well emerge in the next few meetings and focus on the 2-3 points that you highlighted, but which I want to highlight once again. One, recognizing that statehood is extremely important, a full statehood for Jammu and Kashmir as promised by the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, in Parliament, with its own legislature, with its own civil service cadre, with its own legislative assembly. Secondly, that the delimitation exercise, which was seen by leaders within J&K or some section of leaders as perhaps only targeted at Jammu and Kashmir, I think there is encouraging signs that most leaders will participate, or most parties will participate in the delimitation exercise, and that there will be elections, a statehood declaration, and then full-fledged elections. Now, on issues like 370, I think the consensus seems to be that this is sub judice, as you pointed out. It's to the Supreme Court, so there can be no question or debate on that. But in terms of domicile rights or protection of jobs, there are already inbuilt caveats within the new domicile laws which may need to be strengthened. So I think around this, if peace, prosperity, and empowerment of the people of Jammu and Kashmir is a common concern of the leaders of Jammu and Kashmir and of Prime Minister Modi and the Home Minister, then I think you could potentially see in the near future a new consensus, a new Naya Kashmir built on these foundations. I think from the New Delhi's point of view also, there's recognition that bureaucracies and bureaucrats can take you thus far and not further. And that's why I think they replaced the Chief Secretary back and took him back to Delhi, because he was obviously riding roughshod on any chances of a political process. So once the new chief secretary was appointed, and earlier when the Lieutenant Governor, Manoj Sinha ji, was appointed, there were indications that there would be a beginning of a new political process. But given the second wave of the pandemic, I think that was delayed. But Manoj Sinha has the air of the Prime Minister. If he does have that air and he is a political leader, I think we can expect in the next few months not a breakthrough, sudden breakthrough, but an evolution to what could be potentially at least a resolution in which every stakeholder of Jammu and Kashmir is a participant and believes in. Now, I don't think that this is from a point of weakness that Delhi has acted. In fact, it is from a position of strength because there is
let me come to that point. Let me come to that point about why now. So a lot of theories doing the rounds about why now, because the position from August 2019 seems to be very, very different. Even from, I would say, last year, seems to be very, very different from the position that we're seeing today. The same alliance which was being questioned for its intentions is today meeting with the Prime Minister. So why do you think this change has come about? Some theories saying that the Biden administration is exerting its pressure from the United States, troop withdrawal from Afghanistan is playing a part. Do you see this connection at all?
Absolutely not. I have studied Jammu and Kashmir for long enough and its history to recognize that international pressure, even in the worst of times, does not impact on India's internal policy on Jammu and Kashmir. When Narasimha Rao was Prime Minister, you had Robin Raphael, the US Assistant Secretary of State, questioning the accession of Jammu and Kashmir to India. India did not relent on Kashmir even then. And this is the Modi administration. It's unlikely that Biden administration could put any kind of pressure which would impact on this government's policies. Clearly, however, if there's a signal of a political dialogue happening, it will help all those who are spokespersons for New Delhi in Washington. But that India acts under pressure is a misnomer. Secondly, I don't think that the Taliban are suddenly arriving. I heard this bogey of the Taliban almost echoed as many times as during the Cold War. You had Americans thinking the Russians are going to come in through Alaska or are going to somehow enter in through Washington, D.C. itself. But the Russians never came. There were miles and miles separating the mainland of America from the Soviet Union. Similarly, I don't think the Taliban are coming to Kashmir.
Yes.
So I do not believe that theory. I think this is from a position of strength. There's a window of opportunity here where there is virtually no pressure from within the ground. There's a ceasefire on the border. The Modi government is in complete control of the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. They've acted unilaterally, but however, recognizing that these are important stakeholders. Maybe there was a mistake in dismissing them, and it may have been just a part of tactical political posturing previously. But these are important stakeholders, and there are limits, as I pointed out, to what bureaucrats can do and should be allowed to do in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes. So,
and those limits were set by the previous chief secretary who acted like a political chief minister.
Yes. So if we look at it from the point of view of both sides, from the point of view of New Delhi, they've managed to normalize and increase acceptance in that sense of the abrogation of Article 370, all of these leaders willing to meet and know that the process is going on in the courts, but they also seem to be willing to relent on restoration of statehood, on holding elections. From the point of view of the Kashmiri leaders, they also seem to feel like they have been given, some position and some space in Kashmiri politics. So is there a possibility of a win-win here and this truce of sorts lasting?
I hope so. Unlike ideological, dogmatic parties, most politicians believe in the art of the possible. They don't want to go down in history as people who stood for a cause and died for that cause. They want to be in the business of winning political power and changing lives. So I think there is a mutual recognition of what is possible. That is the principle on which you have to build this new politics in Jammu and Kashmir. Obviously, there will be people who will be unhappy, who will call them people who have sold out to New Delhi, and New Delhi will be accused of actually doing deals with with leaders they demonize, but that's politics. Within the limits of what is possible, I think they have come and arrived together. So it's a moment of opportunity, and that's how I look at it. While cynics may dismiss this meeting as just another photo opportunity, I think it's much more. The fact is that Prime Minister Modi does not do this on a regular basis. This is a one-off after 2 years, and this is why it's significant.
You know, the power of a photo op also cannot be undermined at all. It's important that visual of Prime Minister Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah standing with Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah, Mehbooba Mufti and Gulam Nabi Azad, all of those leaders in one shot, is a significant visual message that is going out as well. So let's hope this leads to a resolution and peace all around.
And Tamana, to do it en masse means that there is a great amount of trust already that you won't be infected by COVID by any of the leaders present there. So there you have a small incremental beginning of curtailing the trust deficit.
I have different views on being unmasked. I'm sure they're all vaccinated, but I have different views on being unmasked. I think we should all keep our masks on in public spaces for as long as we can. But that's a different matter altogether. Thank you so much, Professor Matoo, for joining us and shedding light on what is a very, very important moment to mark. Thank you.
Great.